So let's take a look now at some of the morning papers. Here with me are journalist and author Janelle Aldred and the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater. So welcome back to both of you. Janelle, you wanted to kick us off in this section. You found an article in The Guardian, and this focuses on the inquest into the deaths at the Brixton Academy music venue in London.
Following the coroner's report has been suspended whilst they look into an inquest into what happened. They say they're following lots of complex leads and looking at hours and hours and hours of CCTV just to understand what happened and why it led to two people's deaths. So that's something that's ongoing. And although the family, with doing the inquest means they won't get the coroner's report, they say that they are looking forward to finding out the truth and to getting some justice. So I think it was a really, really sad case. We saw those videos of people kind of trying to gain entry into the Brixton Academy, but it looks like all of what transpired will end up with some criminal convictions, and very sad for the family, but they'll get some justice and some truth.
Well, that's right. There's certainly the strong possibility one person is said to say here of that, so we'll see where that does take us. Let's move on, though, in the meantime. And Tom, I'm going to take you to this working from home article. We didn't have time to come to it in the last hour. This is inside the Mail, page 10 of the Mail. And the headline is, British recovery is being held back by crazy working from home culture. It's in inverted commas, so who's saying it?
This is Tony Danker, who's head of the CBI. He's talked about how bosses have secretly said to him in conversations that they want staff back into offices. There was also a recent survey on LinkedIn which found that a third of UK firms plan to cut back on flexible working. So really a kind of marked shift from that during the pandemic and kind of post-pandemic situation where it felt like the move, certainly for white-collar workers, there's many jobs you can't actually do from home, which is often missed in this discussion, were shifting towards a kind of mixed system, a flexible system and so on. But a lot of places are finding that it is not particularly efficient. I always tend to think that particularly younger recruits into businesses and who still kind of like learning the trade, still kind of learning how to be effective in a particular role, it's particularly difficult for them, I think. And, but it's a difficult thing for many people in politics to talk about, not least so much the civil service is still working from home in a sort of flexible way. So, yes, a warning here from the head of the CBI that not only is this not necessarily that efficient for individual firms, but could be having a knock-on impact for the economy, full stop, this big, almost kind of sudden and semi-unthinking shift we did towards working from home during the pandemic and after is having some quite significant impacts.
Janelle, do you have any thoughts on this? Because a lot of people will say, I work just as hard when I work at home as I do in the office, and they might be slightly insulted by the suggestion that they don't. I mean, there is a very important point as well, though, isn't there, about people who are learning roles and being around people, and they say that, lots of ideas spark off each other. But what's your take on it? There are lots of different views on this, aren't there?
I mean, I'm kind of with Tom, really. When I started my career as a journalist, it would be inconceivable to think that I would somehow be working from home, getting to know the ropes, getting to know people, that face-to-face time with your managers, all of those things. They're all important in the work office space. But then for some people who know the job, know the ropes, have childcare issues, have caring responsibilities, working from home is great for them. I think it would just be brilliant if we could move to a system that worked for the business, but also worked for individuals where if they don't need to be in the office, there's not this thing they just have to be in because they're probably not working. I don't think that really rings true, but I think by trying to make us all go back to the office or saying everyone should be able to work from home, well, you never get to anywhere sensible with that. I think we just need to take a bit more of a nuanced, forward-thinking approach.
Flexibility is what you're calling for. Okay, let's take us, Janelle, to the Express next, because this has a very stark headline, this article that you've picked up, a double-page spread here, desperate plight of older generation who are 70% of food banks users.
Yeah, I think this is really upsetting and troubling because a lot of these people using food banks and pensioners, a lot of them have worked many, many years, paid into the system. You think that's going to pay at the other end. And when you get to the other end, you realise that what you have is just not enough. And I think the other troubling thing about using food banks is food banks are also reliant on the rest of us, the public, donating food to food banks. And with times getting tough, of course, some people then stop doing that because they also don't have enough. So food banks really are a backstop that, in my opinion, shouldn't need to be there, but are there. And then if that backstop fails and then people then can't actually stock it with food, then what happens to people who do rely on that as an extra, part of their eating? And we shouldn't have to be deciding between eating and heating. And I definitely don't think that pensioners should be forced into making those choices. And they are the majority of food bank users. And I think that is a sad indictment on where we are at the moment.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark headline there, isn't it? And information within it. Let's turn to The Guardian next. Tom, Matt Hancock, he's donated some of his payment for I'm a Celebrity, always a good excuse to have a picture of him with a frog on his head, to charity.
Yes, so this is the revelation that he's donated just 3% of his I'm a Celebrity fee to charity. So he received $320,000 for his stint in the jungle, 10,000 of which has gone to a particular charity. I don't think hasn't responded to questions necessarily about where the rest of it might be going. And I think it puts Matt Hancock on a bit of a sticky wicket because of the fact that he really presented his entrance into I'm a Celebrity as effectively an act of public service. He was going to go in there to talk about dyslexia, which I think he only mentioned a handful of times on the air, as it turned out. He was going to go in there to, again, campaign on the issues that he cares about. But there are questions being raised as to whether or not that really was the full extent of it, given the fact that his chosen charities maybe didn't receive the percentage that people might have expected. So I think it's, who knows, there might be another side to this story, but whenever someone tries to present what is a quite lucrative endeavour as actually an act of public service, one should probably be a little bit sceptical.
Okay, well, we'll leave leave things on that lesson. But Tom and Janelle, a real pleasure to have your company this morning. You've taken us through all sorts of stories, so thanks very much indeed. It's been fascinating. Now, do stay with us. Coming up next on Sky News at breakfast, body cam footage captures the brutal beating of Tyree Nichols by 5 Memphis police officers.